Why do different narcissists behave differently? Maybe you've been with one that's acted a certain way and you've been like, oh, this next one doesn't seem so bad because he seems more caring, seems more loving, he's serving in the community and in the people that he's around. Like, this can't be a narcissist. Then you get with them behind closed doors, you're like, same person, like different version, but same person. All of a sudden you start realizing that in narcissism there's different factions or different fractures that happen inside narcissistic personality disorder that make them come across different or appear different depending on society, like the people they're around or their upbringing. And so you're going to see this in a couple different ways. So we're not going to touch on all of them because the subsets get a little muddled. There's like different ones out there. I'm only going to talk today about 3 different main ones, and that's overt, that's covert, and then that's also communal. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this today, but I want to at least give you a bit of an overview and a bit of a touching point about narcissistic personality disorder and how it splinters into multiple different subsets. Now, the thing you have to understand is each one is different but the same. This is hard for people to get sometimes, but each one is going to have the 9 diagnostic characteristics, but they're going to be different in how they come across. For instance, with overt narcissists, you might have the overt rage, in your face, raging, getting upset, all this kind of stuff, like the screaming, yelling, punching the walls, hitting you. Like there might be multiple things that happens with the rage aspect with overt. Now with covert, you're probably not going to see the outburst as much. You might be getting maybe sometimes more of the subtlety, like the subtle aspects of how they're actually demeaning and belittling you. And you're like, was that an insult? Was that not an insult? Like, I'm not sure what just happened there. You might see pieces of like dog whistling where like he's putting you down in front of other people, but other people are like, they don't pick anything up from it because it's something that's done in private that then is public and makes you feel bad, but you're the only one that even connects with it. So sometimes it's more of a subtle, belittling, like small manipulative way. Then you might have the communal one that gives you even more of the silent treatment that just kind of shuts down, that doesn't actually engage the same way. So like that's like different variations of the narcissist rage, the narcissist giving anger. It's the same aspect that you're still going to see it inside like all the relationships, but it shows up differently. Sometimes people get stuck up on like just little points like this. So like, well, he can't be a narcissist because he didn't rage at me. Not all narcissists rage, okay? Well, he can't be a narcissist because he didn't say anything bad about me. But like how he stonewalled, how he kept quiet, and how he like just smoldered with all of that hate towards you, that's another piece of it. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Just like there's every single piece about narcissism is typically integrated into these different styles. They just come across different, or they're hidden in different ways. Think of it too like this way, like the communal narcissist oftentimes is more self-serving with a front of appearing serving. So like they might appear like they are serving and helping other people, but it's like, oh, well, that made me look good, that made me feel good, and it's still about them. Versus like the overt is like, it's all about me, focus on me. Versus like the covert might be more of like the vulnerable behind the scenes, but it still has all the drama revolving around them. They're still the center of attention. So there's oftentimes this piece of like still having the entitlement, still having the focus on them, but it gets spread out different ways. Hopefully that gives you just an idea, a perspective. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations and your guide in the Clarity Challenge, which is the 45-day challenge to help you break free mentally and emotionally from the trauma bond, the obsessive thinking, and to learn how to be able to identify and work through the story that you believe and the story that you've been telling yourself about being stuck with a toxic person for such a long period of time. If I can help you with any way, go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to help you be free today. Well, first off the docket is our typical one that we want to talk about, which is the overt narcissist. Like this is the in your face, out there, like I'm charismatic, I'm also a manipulator, I'm great at my job, all this kind of stuff, like manipulator to the degree. But an overt narcissist, oftentimes you can spot much easier than any others. These are the ones where you kind of like, like it just seems slimy, just seems like sleazy, like don't really like this person, don't really like how their ego won't even fit through the door because it's so much about them. It's so much like inflamed about it only being about him. And so the overt narcissists are the ones that have like arrogance that you see sometimes from a mile away. You're like, that person is really self-obsessed. They're really absorbed with themselves. Now, oftentimes they'll be seeking this constant admiration. They'll be like reaching out for people of like, oh yeah, don't you think I'm amazing? All this kind of stuff, because it's like all about them. It just is very much broadcasted. The communal and the covert, it's not as much broadcasted, okay? But with an overt, it is like in your face. You're like, this person is a narcissist. So like typically when people think of narcissists, they think of overt. They think of like person snapping selfies of themselves, looking good, dressing up in a certain way beyond their means, driving cars beyond their means, like having all this money, all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, that person's really arrogant, showing it off, things like that. Like that's typically the version that people think of. Like picture this way, you've got a partner who like boasts about his achievements. It's like, you should be applauding me, you should be giving me your attention, and like you can tell it's not just like a, oh, you should love me more, like it's like a in your face. Okay, behavior oftentimes will overshadow your needs, your feelings, and will put you down in a way of like, well, I must not be that big of a deal because he's so much bigger than me, he's so much greater than me, like I need to focus all my attention effort on him. Okay, but overt is very much like in your face. When we talk about covert, this is probably majority of people that I deal with more of covert because they didn't see it. And then when they watch some of my videos, they're like, wait a second, that's narcissism? Like, oh, that's what I struggle with. That's what I've been involved in for a long period of time. And that's because with a narcissist, you're talking about the subtle manipulators. Like these are the ones that are slowly sliding into your life and ripping out your whole identity. Like you're like, I don't even know who I am anymore because how he morphed and manipulated conversations, dynamics to be toxic to the place where you didn't know who you actually were. And covert narcissists, on the other hand, like they're the masters of it just being subtle, subtly belittling you, subtly putting you down, subtly having like all these little snide remarks and snide comments that make you feel less than, make you feel little. But in reality, he's just trying to do that to control you. And oftentimes narcissists, a covert narcissist will do this with a victimhood of like, I'm the victim. They'll switch it around and put it back on you. I used an illustration recently about like cheating of like, I cheated because you didn't love me. Like I cheated because you didn't give me sex. Like I cheated because it was your fault. Like switching back around of like, I'm the victim of me cheating because you didn't do X, Y, and Z. Okay. So like a covert narcissist will try to flip it around on you, so that he's the victim and so that you're the abuser. And also there's this aspect of covert narcissist that is ingrained a lot of times is also passive aggressive. Like the snide remarks, the small comments, the things that like are the digs that put you down. And this passive aggressive piece will slowly like belittle and put you, like demean you down to a place where you have no confidence, you have no self-esteem, and ultimately you typically don't know who you are. Like you've lost in kind of like this fog and this film of like, I don't know what's actually true anymore. I don't know if I can go to the store and pick up a loaf of bread because I don't know if I can actually do that. I don't say that to be like trifling. I say that like that is like actual real examples. Now, people that don't know if they can make decisions because of how much they've been put down, belittled, demeaned to a place that you have no confidence, but it's subtle. Otherwise, if it was in your face, you probably would have left a long time ago. Think of it this way. Instead of boasting, like he plays the victim. Like instead of being like, I'm amazing, he's like, oh, like this happened to me. And you're still paying attention. That's the whole thing. So still getting a reaction, a response. Like you might be using guilt tripping methods of how do I actually do this to manipulate you to get my needs met. Oftentimes concealing their own manipulative agenda hidden underneath the surface of like, what do I need to do to get you to do the things that I want you to do? I'm going to do this. And so they're typically trying to do different things to make sure they get what they want. Then you have communal narcissists. Communal narcissists, someone said like self-promotion or altruism of like what's actually going on here. A lot of times communal narcissists are these selfless narcissists. Like they're just like, it's not about me, it's about you. Let me focus on serving you. Let me focus on helping you. But there's also sometimes like switches that'll happen of like, I'll serve you until you get to this place, then I'll leave you out to dry. Like there's so many different nuances that happen with it. But oftentimes it's more like how they portray. You can almost say like communal is almost a version of a mask that a narcissist has to society. So this might be the aspect of like where he's willing to get out of the car and help the old lady across the street with her trash can, but then he'll scream at you the rest of the way to church and then put on a serving mask when he shows up. Like, there's so many different nuances and variation, but it's like, let me show up as the ultimate helper, the ultimate servant, the ultimate caregiver. Oftentimes, like, portraying themselves in that way so that they look good to society. But oftentimes their actions are very self-serving of like, if I look good to society, then people will think that I'm good. It will justify the bad things I've done behind closed doors. It will justify how I'm not showing up for my family in other ways. But if I show up this way, people will realize that I'm a good person. And it comes back to themselves. It comes back to how it actually appears for me. So think of it this way. You might have a partner who engages in like activities like just for public approval. Like, if I do this, people are going to think I'm a great person. And it seems like their deeds hide this desire for admiration and validation. Like, it's like, oh, they're not looking for that, when they actually are. It's just hidden under a layer of servitude or helping other people do X, Y, and Z. Hope that makes sense. There's a lot of different versions, different pieces about narcissism. That's why when we focus on you healing, we don't focus on this version, that version. We focus on you getting clarity about the facts of the situation, about the story that you believe, and that's been impressed upon you from the toxic narcissistic person. So if we can help with that, please go to claritychallenge.net today. Or if you want some one-on-one talking time where we can talk, we can see where you're at and how I can help you move forward, go to rawmotivations.com today.